So, Buster, firstly, thanks a lot for agreeing to take part in this interview today. We had a date in the diary booked a long time ago to have a catch up and an interview, thinking about the future of mortgage tech and fintech, and perhaps even more importantly, having a lunch and a beer as well. Unfortunately, that's for now. But I thought, seeing we've had a date in the diary, let's try and do something a bit different. This is our first kind of attempt at kind of a Zoom remote interview. So thank you for being the guinea pig and part of our first Zoom interview. So,
no problem.
And yeah,
I'll try and do my best.
And apologies in advance. I've got 3 children running around the house creating noise, and they may bust at any moment. I told them to stay out, but we'll just, it was a complete disaster. Just bear with us. So cool. So I guess we originally were going to talk about the future of technology, particularly around the mortgage space, and how incumbents are sort of innovating and adapt. I think you guys are doing some really interesting stuff. But I guess before we touch on that, how are you getting on? How are you and your family, and how are you kind of adapting to this current situation?
So it's been, hey, look, anyone with kids at home. So we got 2 kids, 8-year-old and 2-year-old, and both me and my wife work. So it's been a challenge, to say the least, trying to balance work, being a teacher, running a creche,
yes.
Potty training. Obviously not us, the youngest, but it's been a real challenge. So about 4 weeks ago, we started trialing working from home, which was about 2 weeks before Boris's lockdown announcement. Mm-hmm. So everyone had a go at it. And I think it would be fair to say we realised fairly quickly that there was a whole load of things, from the BCP, disaster recovery plan sort of point of view, that we needed to update, because it's fine if you just say the building's burnt down, let's go and work in another office. But when the impact is you can't really, social restrictions, social movement restrictions, it's a totally different challenge. So, so we did quite a lot of work, getting everybody set up remotely from a basics, like have you got the right hardware sort of point of view, all the way through to how do we release funds remotely and still make sure that it's as secure as it has to be. So, yeah, it's really forced our hand to be quite innovative. Probably a great example of that is, we've done a lot of good digital things, but we actually still had hard copy paper files in the office.
Okay.
So 3 weeks ago, we went paperless. We've been talking about, well, we've got to get around to this. We've got to get around to it. And then it was, well, if we don't do like in the next 3 days, then we haven't business in a week's time. Yeah. So that was probably the biggest change that we had to make as a result of this. But there's a lot of smaller things that we've done as well.
Yes. So it's interesting. So that switch to paperless, obviously, had that change been in the works for a while? And how did you manage to make that switch so quickly?
So we've got imaging software at the moment. We've got a supplier for that. But what we do is, because of the nature of the way that a file comes in, brokers will submit multiple bits of information. And the easiest way, underwriters, they want to touch it, they want to feel it, they want to sniff the paper, payslips, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So we used to print everything out that came in soft copy, because we do accept it all soft copy. So this is the madness. Everything gets emailed to us. Yeah. Then we would print it all. Yes. Then it would get worked, and then at the back end of the process, we would scan all of that information in, and then archive it off.
Okay.
And we've been talking about investing in some technology that automatically sorted a document, so like a 100-page PDF, and would sort it into, this is a payslip, this is a valuation, this is a land registry app form, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And we were sort of a little bit down the road on that, but the costs were a little bit higher than we wanted. So we've just been pushing it out into the long grass. And then, like I said, about 3 weeks ago, we realised we needed to come up with a better solution. So we still wanted to try and avoid that cost. So actually what we did was we came up with it's probably more crude than you'd ideally like, but we're using our existing imaging software, and some of their indexing features, just indexing elements of the file. It's not, using AI to sort it and all the sort of the way we want to go, but it gets us to a point where we can have an underwriter underwrite a loan at their kitchen table. They can then pass that file to, a secondary mandate holder who can then, validate that the information is correct and ultimately at some point pass, issue the offer, which we already did, email anyway. So that element of the process was already taken care of.
Kind of the old adage that necessity is the mother of invention, I guess.
Absolutely. I think probably the other thing that we did off of the back of this is we've been, we've been doing biometric ID for about 8 or 9 months, and it's been really helpful for us in terms of speeding up the application process, mitigating some of the fraud risks that you carry if you get physical copies of things or certified copies of things. But we've been delivering that through a secure chat channel. So it's not just an ID journey. There's other opportunities in terms of customer interactions. Yeah. So what we've done is we've actually moved some of our security checks that we do with customers prior to loans completing into that secure chat channel. So what effectively that's done is that's taken telephone calls where we would call the customer, walk them through the details of the loan, validate some information with them. We've moved that totally into a digital channel, and we've built effectively a chat bot that does that journey. So we've saved ourselves probably 1 or 2 people in terms of capacity gain, but it's also utilizing some of the technology that was already there, just in a new way. So that's been quite good. And that's an industry first. We haven't actually officially done any PR on that yet. So here's the scoop. But that's that's an industry first. So quite pleasing.
That sounds great. And I guess I was going to touch a bit later around digital ID. I think you spoke at our event in October, our mortgage digital transformation event. As an aside, doesn't that feel like a different world in a room with people, drinking exactly like that? It's a different world, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah.
Hopefully, come October, we can do another one. But you basically came to the talk around how UTB have adopted digital ID and I think you rolled it into one of your products at the time, and I think you rolled it out to other products.
We have, yeah. So we guinea pigged it, I guess, in the mortgage division, and but since then we've rolled that out into bridging. So certain bridging loans, you go through a biometric ID journey to validate ID, and also that replaces the need for us to actually meet the customer in some certain circumstances. So there's not just a fraud benefit and a procedural benefit. There's actually a real volume benefit, because it allows us to get to those customers quicker. And we've also started using it within our structured finance team and also within development finance. Now the use case is slightly different for them. With mortgages, it's a commoditized product, right? You're doing hundreds of these things every month. But with development lending or bridging, it's not on that same sort of scale. You're dealing in, for bridging 50 apps a month or 50 completions a month. For development, it might be 10 or 15, much higher loan sizes. But not the.
Oh, you disappeared.
Oh, sorry. There you go. Sorry, somebody called me. Sorry about that. The challenge that those divisions tend to have is the ownership structure of businesses. So they might be lending to a limited company, and the owners of those businesses, one might be based in Russia, and one might be based in Italy, one might be in the States, and IDing all of those people when they're based potentially all over the globe is actually a real challenge. So the old way of doing that would be go and visit a solicitor in your area, and we'll rely on them certifying a copy of your passport or whatever. And all of that takes time and energy and effort and is a barrier. And actually, by being able to introduce biometric ID into some of those other product sets, it wouldn't necessarily it might have a volume impact, but it's certainly got a procedural and annoyance benefit. It just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, I guess there's a kind of servicing operational cost as well. If you add that up over the year, that's quite an obvious, cost, efficiency.
Yeah. And solicitors don't do it for free. So whether we as the bank pay for that, or the customer pays for that, or the broker pays for that, there's a cost to going and getting those things done. Whereas we can now do it for free in 30 seconds.
That sounds good. So have there been any sort of challenges rolling out? Brokers kind of embraced letting their customers directly send IDs to you, things like that? How's that rollout kind of gone?
I think because we're an introducer-led bank, so we don't have a direct proposition. We've got no plans for that. We want to be introducer-led. They're our customers as much as the consumer is. And I think the way that it's been really positively received. And I think what they're seeing us try to do is make their lives easier. Going and getting that sort of documentation to send on to us, or certifying it and sending it on to us, it's a pain. It takes time and energy and effort. And actually, we're not interfering in their communication with their customer. We're doing it as a one-hit sort of transaction type thing. Come, do your ID, and then that's it, move on. You know, we're not trying to step on anyone's toes here. We're just trying to facilitate an easier solution than what was there in the past. There is obviously fraud benefits, and you know, it looks good, doesn't it? That, you know, you're seen as a, you know, a firm that wants to embrace that sort of technology, you know, and that creates a perception of us as a business, which, you know, we want to have. You know, we want to be seen as not necessarily the bleeding edge, but we want to be, you know, we want to be seen as a firm that will embrace that sort of change, and where it's right for our business and our customers. You know.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really interesting point. You know, over the last couple of years, you know, there's been early adopters on technology, and I think you know, you guys certainly are in terms of digital ID, but others in terms of chatbots and, you know, AI-driven bots, etc. And I've detected a little bit of, you know, not cynicism, but, you know, people perhaps perceive it as somewhat of a PR exercise or similar. Actually, I think at the moment, those that have sort of taken those leaps are really kind of, you know, reaping dividends on those and seeing the return. I think hopefully once this is all kind of over and got back to normal, I think, you know, I guess potentially this would be a driver for others to kind of move forward as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think for us as a business, look, we're a specialist bank, okay? So, you know, £1.3 billion balance sheet, you know, that's not as big as, you know, anybody in the top 20 lenders in the country, you know, anywhere near it. So kind of the depth of our pockets aren't as deep as others. But then having said that, we haven't got the legacy systems to combat. We haven't got, you know, disparate portfolios to look at or multiple sites to manage. You know, so what we try and do is, you know, we use the phrase bang for buck quite a lot. So, you know, if we're going to spend some money, we want to make sure that there's a tangible benefit at the end of it. Now, that sometimes an actual process one, sometimes it's a volume one, sometimes it's just a relationship one. But it's got to have a tangible benefit, because if we're going to spend the time and energy in doing this, it has to have a benefit, because, you know, we're not the scale of business that we can afford to take huge risks. You know, we can take some risks in terms of where we invest our money and making sure that we get it right, but it has to be bang for buck, you know. And that's why we tend to look at people who we learn lessons from other mistakes. Is obviously good, you know, always a good strategy. But what we'll always try and do is see what someone is doing somewhere and doing it well, and then try and emulate it to the best of our ability. Now, the whole biometric ID really started by seeing what Atom Bank were doing. So, you know, when Atom came to market, they came with, you know, this fantastic proposition, you know, around it's a totally digital journey through your device. You don't get hard bits of post. You don't send off formal application forms. It's all done through that digital journey. Now, we're not ready to go completely digital, and it actually isn't fit for purpose for bridging or development. But if we can find a way to utilize some of that, and when you looked at their journey, the way that you log into their app using facial recognition or your voice, the way that they do that during the application journey, I experienced firsthand that, you know, I had an Atom mortgage, and you know, I was really impressed with the journey. So we used elements that we could, and then we went and found suppliers who kind of were doing that and had a similar sort of approach to us of wanting to be entrepreneurial, but weren't the biggest in town. So they were hungry for new customers. And then we partnered with them to kind of to bring that particular product to market. But we're trying to do it in other areas as well. So things like Decision Engine. And we're just about to launch or in June we'll be launching a new Decision Engine platform. And that's not something we've really had in the past. We do some decisioning online, but not to the level of complexity or point of sale value add that we do.
Is that going to be?
But we've picked that is.
Sorry,
Mark.
Is that going to be automated dips within your broker portal, or is that type of decision?
Correct.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
is another
we can use.
Is this yet another scoop? Is this another scoop?
We're going to have to edit this out. My marketing team are going to hate this. But yeah, no. So basically, that's the plan. Yeah, no, we've been like some things like we've done like biometric ID. I think we led the way on that in the specialist sector, but we don't currently have an online decision in principle, and that's okay. You can get away with that in certain product sets, but if you want to get some scale, then actually you need that. And we're not a credit score based lender. We're never going to be that. But there are certain elements of the process that we can automate, releasing our people to make the more value add decisions. So we've been working on that for the last 3 or 4 months, and we're about we're about 2.5 months away from launch. So it's really going to help us hopefully springboard out of the back of this, coronavirus situation we're in the market, and help us in our market growth. But also it's about just making life easier. If we can tell a broker up front, not just that, yes, we'll do the deal, but we'll do the deal. You need 3 months pay slips. Actually, you don't need to have a valuation because we've done an ABM, or, whatever it might be. Then that broker will have a better conversion on the UTB business than he will on others. And if we can make our journey less friction, or have, people talk about frictionless all the time, but if we can have less bumps in the road than others, then maybe that will make us more appealing. It's not about doing every deal in the market. We don't want to do every deal in the market, but we want to do the deals we want better.
I think that's also the kind of the automation of prime market is, it's been fairly automated for quite a while. But I think we are starting to see in the specialist market. We built a portal for Master Haven recently, which has
absolutely
sorts of things. So I think the specialist lenders for those simpler specialist cases, if that's not an oxymoron, but there are those that need a credit decision. Fundamentally, you can capture that. You can use APIs to Dbms. You can automate some of this decisioning. So that's really exciting. You guys are your broker portal at the moment then. So do you want to give a bit of background about that and how useful that's been?
Of course. So when we launched the mortgage proposition in 2015, we had to have a broker interface, a portal, or an opportunity for them to produce documents, get credit, get loan calculator details, and do an affordability decision. And that's basically all it did to start with. We had a limited budget, new entrant. It wasn't private equity money. We wanted to build the business in a sustainable way, so we started small with something that was quite simple. And then what we've done is, over the years, we've added to that. So a bit like building I think the analogy I used in your conference was the Lego house. We started off with something that looked a bit like Duplo, and then actually what we've tried to do is build elements on it. So we went through the Lego City range, and now we're probably starting to border on Technics, exactly. We've done a number of enhancement phases, and we tend to split our developments into 2 streams. So we do have agile for stuff that is quick, easy. We don't need to do as much planning as you would necessarily want to do, and we tend to think of that as smaller change. So not BAU, but stuff that's smaller, more simple to do. And then we have in the background, we still have a kind of waterfall type approach for the really big stuff. So, using this new decision engine as an example, we've been running that in the background in more of a waterfall type approach. Actually, we've got, we've spun up a different production, a pre-prod environment. We're actually our 4th release into that environment, but we're not promoting it all to live, because actually we want to have the opportunity to have it all singing, all dancing with all the functionality, rather than drip feed that in. And we'll roll out, more slowly. So we kind of have this approach where the easier, smaller style stuff we tend to do agile, and then the big things where we've got to dedicate maybe a team of people, 5 or 6 people at it, tends to be more waterfall. And that's worked for us. We're on kind of enhancement phase 8, but in between that, in 4 or 5 years, so probably one every 4 to 6 months, something like that. But the stuff that goes in on a more regular basis, we want to tweak this, we want to tweak that, we want to change this field, those sorts of things will all just be going on as BAU, really.
I think that also kind of reflects the reality of the market, that agile is a great methodology and has lots of benefits, and for greenfield development works great, and for iterating over time. And a big chunk of the work that we do is kind of fully agile. But where you have other system vendors, which incumbents do, you have your other system providers and kind of other parts of the business that aren't working in an agile way. We're using that methodology. Then there has to be a bit of realpolitik, I think, about that, and a bit of realism about what's possible. It sounds like there's always an element of fusion of the 2 kind of methodologies. So it sounds like you guys have got a good balance with that.
Absolutely. I mean, I just want to ask a question. Actually, you mentioned earlier on that you guys did the development for Master Haven portal, and they were the first people to market with kind of an online bridging, self-service type proposition. But I think that's a really good example of, the specialist market is a quirk, right? It's not a sausage machine. It's not nationwide, but there are still elements of it that you can automate. And you know, we think about document production, you know, or a dip in a bridging world.
Yeah.
You know, actually, there are some of those that are more straightforward than others, and I think that's a, you know, I think. Do you think do you think there'll be more specialist lenders that bring those types of products to market?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable competition. Like when one lender does it, I think that creates, you know, being first to market is good, but I think it creates that, you know, there's an efficiency saving that any lender that adopts that can get, which is great. But there's also, I guess, a kind of marketing and positioning, you know, being able to market yourself to brokers, offering them a quick, instant solution for those simpler cases. Interesting, when we tested these types of solutions with brokers, the brokers were sort of saying that, you know, some cases they know they're going to be need a credit decision. So what they want is the ability to flag up at the beginning and say, hey, look, this isn't going to auto dip. Like, I know this one needs to be looked at by someone. So they did ask for that kind of ability.
Yeah.
That, which I thought was interesting. But I think, yeah, I think it's
okay.
More of the market's going to go in that direction. I mean, for your your cases that are so specialist that they need to have that human intervention, that human decision. I guess our principle is, well, actually, that's great. Human beings add lots of value around that decision, but the rest of the life cycle, you know, your digital ID, your generated documents, all the rest of that, the value chain, you know, you want to free up human beings to not be doing that manual work. So I think there's still a big, you know, argument for digitizing that process as much as possible. Interesting times ahead, I guess. And
do you see that as so one of the things that, you know, we see in the marketplace is lenders have invested a lot of time and energy in their own portals. So being quite sort of focused on what we're doing, like where have we got API links, where can we you know, allow brokers to interface with us. And it's been very sort of lender focused. But then over the last kind of 18 months, you've seen people like 27 Tech who, you know, who arguably are kind of disintermediating that somewhat by saying, actually, you know what, you can source on us and then you can produce the docs on us and then we'll just dump it into the lender system for you. Do you think that you'll see more of those like central platforms come up that will just integrate into a lender's back office, and almost the broker facing side of the lender's portal will start to drop away? That's sort of a view that we've got.
I mean, it's been kind of an obvious thing for a few years in the pipeline. There's been existing products that do fairly similar things from Mortgage Brain and others for quite a while, and Iris have the Lender Connect and there are others in the market. I think it hasn't really gained that much traction over the last year, just because, you know, if you look at the market, so much volume goes through the big six, and they haven't really been that far forward on this curve. So from a broker perspective, you know, why am I going to want to adopt and like have this learning curve of new technology? How, you know, although it will save me time, potentially if it's only for, you know, a slither of the market. So what we are starting to see, and there's been some big announcements over the last couple of weeks actually with 27 Tech and some big lenders and other platforms, is I really do think, and I said, you know, I think I said at our event in October as well, that 2020, it does feel like the dam is potentially kind of breaking, and I think it's fair to, and you know, the innovation will start to flow in the mortgage market. And I think I'm on that point. I think maybe you disagree, but I think it's fair to say that the mortgage market is a few years behind in terms of technology compared to other sectors that we work in, particularly around insurance and others. And I mean, actually, potentially this situation here, much as it forced, you know, your hands in terms of, you know, digital documents and having a paperless office, do you think this is going to be the kind of the unexpected black swan that could potentially, you know, really kind of push this forward in the industry? Or do you think once this is gone and we're kind of back to some normality, that people will just kind of revert to type?
I think I think there will be some lasting stuff from this. So you know, you opened up by saying we were due to meet and go through some of these questions, and it wasn't in your mindset or mine to be like, actually, let's do it like over a Zoom or a Google Meet or whatever it might be. But now people are doing that all the time. You look at house party, like, you know, everyone's having a house party on a Friday night, you know, raising a glass. I had a chat with my best man on just FaceTime, but on Friday night. Now, normally we would never do that. We'd go and meet down the pub, or that might get rearranged, and I'd see him once every 3 months. But actually, why don't we just spend half an hour and do that like that?
Yeah.
Now it could be. I was talking to my mum about it, but it could be a generational thing. You know, she loves FaceTime. You know, in her mid-60s and really likes that. And actually, you know, I sort of almost before this viewed it as like FaceTime is almost like a treat. Like I would text or call.
Yes.
But I wouldn't really FaceTime very often,
No.
or I wouldn't use Zoom for meetings.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have to go in a broker's office, or I'd have to, you know, go in and meet the supplier, or ask them to come down to London or whatever it is. And certain industries, I think, of this sort of, you know, communication. So my wife works in resourcing and recruitment, and they do pretty much everything over Zoom. She doesn't actually have an office. And they have live chat for conversations. And so she's got her email, she's got a live chat, she's got a Zoom, like all of these things going on at once. But you don't see that in the mortgage space, do you? You don't, you know, there's been a few cases of like Nationwide giving advice over, you know, online where you could sort of view another human being, but that human being was still in a Nationwide office somewhere.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, I think those sorts of things, whether we see it more decisioning or, you know, real true new tech, I don't know, but I certainly think from a communication point of view, this has blown the doors off a little bit in terms of what it's forced people to do. And on the balancing side of that, you know, certainly like from a welfare perspective, you know, we've got all of our staff working from home, as every company has, if they haven't been furloughed. You know, so how do you look after your staff welfare? That's a whole set of challenges there that you've not really had before. You know, BDMs might be based from home, but they're seeing brokers every day. But now suddenly,
that's quite a personal, relationship driven. You know, it's a key part of what they do. How are your BDMs adapting to? Are they utilising FaceTime and calling that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So you know, from a meetings point of view, a lot of them would pick up the phone, but now they're starting to move to kind of a FaceTime or you know, like a live chat sort of approach. You know, obviously the market's restricted a little bit. You know, a lot of brokers aren't maybe as busy as they were, and certainly some of the bigger firms maybe are looking to furlough some staff for a period of time until we come out the other side. But I really think these sorts of interactions are going to become more and more so. Like, I think webinars are like a thing, aren't they? They're a marketing thing, and they came out, you know, a few years ago. But you don't really see it as much on a one-to-one basis. And even I would go so far as to say, when we've had people come in and pitch us, and they've wanted to pitch us over like this sort of an interaction, we thought that was a bit negative. Like, actually, why can't you be bothered to come and see us? Come down to the office, or we'll come to you, or whatever. Like, why would you not want to do that? But having to do it now, being forced to do it now, actually sort of takes off those blinkers a little bit, and you think, you know what, this is quite a good way of communicating. And if I didn't waste an hour and a half traveling on the train to Manchester and costing me 200 quid, and then half an hour from the train station to the place for an hour meeting and then back, I've lost the whole day. Because actually I could have done an hour's meeting in this sort of way, and it's far more productive. You know, plus I can do it sat around with, you know, a shirt and tie on and just a pair of shorts in the house or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And it's, you know, you can, I think it will.
That's good.
I do think it, you know, communication, I think this will have an effect on society, but we need to balance that with people need people. You know, you want to, being in the room with someone is a different interaction than this, and I think we need to think about, from our point of view, we're doing quite a lot on staff welfare. Like, you've got all these people working disparately. You know, having 2 kids and a wife at home has been, you know, lovely and challenging at times. But if you lived on your own, or you know, you haven't got kids, or, you know, how do you keep yourself sane? You know, you need some human contact, real human contact, not just you know, not just this.
You kind of, because we've, you know, obvious stuff we're doing, like Friday afternoon. We always, you know, have a bit at the end of the day in the office anyway, so we're doing that kind of remotely, which is what I think people need, especially, as you say, for people that don't have, you know, a house full of people, that, you know, to have that human kind of contact virtually is really important.
So it's a challenge. So we've got, you know, we started off with conference calling, and then quickly found that actually seeing people is much better than just conference calling. So we've moved to that pretty quickly. What we're also doing is, you know, we've got our standard WhatsApp groups, but we set up a new one, and all we do is post videos in it. So not like your meme type videos, like, I mean, an actual video of one of us. So at the end of, we kind of, loosely call it Buster's postcards, which sounds a bit cheesy, but
Okay.
the idea is at the end of every day, I'll do a short 3 or 4 minute video of like, what we've been up to today, what's gone well, what's the challenges, like you would if you were in the office sort of thing.
Yes.
And then every day there's a challenge. So for example, the first day, one of our sales guys, Chris Pedler, came up with the idea of giving an update from a BDM working at home's point of view.
Yeah.
So he did a little update, and then at the end of his video, he challenged one of the underwriting managers, who is a big fan of karaoke, to sing a Spandau Ballet song. So he then did that, and he gave a little update on kind of what it was like for him working from home.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's been various things like the toilet roll keep you uppy challenge, and you know, various other silly things. But it's just a way of us, you know, continuing to have that interaction with people. And all right, it might not be two-way, but you're seeing people, you're getting a feel for what their challenges are. You know, one of the underwriters had a small laptop, and we all have 2 screens in the office. So what he worked out was how to connect his laptop to his TV in his bedroom, which he brought down onto the dining room table, so that he could effectively have 2 screens. So he did a little like top tips video of how you do that. You know, and it's little things, but it's just trying to keep people interacting during this period of time. And I think some of the stuff will pend over. So like video calling, I think will pend over. But obviously,
yes. Oh, you've gone again.
Look, I had another call there. Sorry.
The guy, I haven't known. I feel a bit left out now.
But some things I think won't. You know, ultimately you want your people in a group together.
Yes.
But using this sort of interaction to complement that, I think.
Yes. I guess part of that sounds really good ideas. I guess the unknown at the moment is just how long it's going to go on for. So I'm an optimist in life generally, and you know, if we think in the next month or 6 weeks, if we can come back to some form of normality, there definitely will be lessons learned and things we can adopt I mean, at the moment, I have a 4-hour round trip every day to the office. So I'm getting a lot of time back now. And it's a cliche, but on a personal level, it's been great. You know, I've got 6 months old and 5 and a 7-year-old. So it's been great to see more of them in the morning and evening. And that's, you know, definitely positive. I am still a believer that, you know, especially when you've got developers and designers running workshops face to face, and that kind of, you know, you get a kind of creative flow going when you're in a
absolutely
I think we will still need that, but certainly I think you know, it's definitely, we've proven that another channel works, and how we can kind of maybe make a judgment call moving forward on, you know, how often do we really need to be in the office versus could be an interesting one. So probably
I think working from
again in a month's time when we're back in the office, say, hey, you know.
I like working from home. You know, there's always that, you know, oh, you're working from home today, are you? Yeah, you're not really doing much, are you? But actually, you know, I think this sort of thing will break that. And one of the things we looked at when we had some license problems before all of our licenses had come through, we were looking at, well, what about if we do 4 days on, and then, you know, you effectively condense the week down. So you work your normal week, but you do like 4 10-hour days, and then forget the weekends exist, and then someone else will do 3 days, and then someone, do you know what I mean? Looking at that sort of pattern. So I think things like flexible working, this sort of experience will open up the doors to that in some industries where it's not really widely accepted.
I think that could be a definite plus point. I guess if we, you know, we've covered digital ID, automated decisioning, this kind of whole new kind of culture, I guess, of kind of video calling and how that's going to affect business. If we, you know, if you get your crystal ball out, Buster's crystal ball, about, you know, the next few years of mortgage technology, aside from what's happened, I guess the point of what's happened in the situation at the moment is it might drive some of that to happen quicker. But what do you think are kind of other technologies or other even things you've seen in other industries that you think that the mortgage sector in particular could, you know, and lending could sort of benefit from?
So I think there's quite a lot of people out there doing 1 or 2 things quite well, but nobody does everything really well. You know, if you rewound, 10 years, 15 years, there were some lenders, like GMAT was the first ever lender to do a point of sale offer. And that was like back in 2006.
Yes.
So, you know, this is not new stuff. You know, this is not new stuff. But that's all, you know, they did that one thing, but they didn't do all of the other stuff that went with it. And I think it's hard to, you know, the 2-year horizon is easier. When you start looking forward further than that, kind of, you know, 5 years or 10 years, you start to get into, it's hard to imagine you know, you only know what you know. You know, we talked earlier on about the blinkers coming off. Well, if LandReg moved to a blockchain model, well, that's going to that would have a huge impact. You know, you'd have total revolution in the, you know, solicitors market would change. You know, you wouldn't have all these multiple title insurances or indemnity insurances getting bought at every point. Maybe you just buy one and it travels with the property. You know, so I think those sorts of things are hard to envisage beyond like just throwing stuff out in the air.
Yes.
What I would like to see is that it becomes a bit more of a level playing field. So, you know, 20 years ago, everybody had application forms. Everybody requested 3 original payslips. You know, I think we're moving into an environment now within the next you fast forward 5 years, everyone will have an online decision. Everyone will be using, you know, income verification without payslips, you know, maybe some form of open banking or just an income verification. You know, everyone will be using AVMs more and supplementing that with just normal valuations on higher risk cohorts, but to an extent that's beyond the current usage.
Well, the whole market's completely stopped, isn't it? People can't physically go and do valuations.
Exactly.
That's kind of an obvious thing.
It's even worse in Scotland. So about a week and a half ago, the Scottish Register or the Register of Scotland just shut, absolutely shut. So you can't. There is no property registrations currently happening in Scotland. You know, if you think about what would happen in England and Wales if that happened. You know, no one's really talking about it, but it's a massive issue. And you know, why is that not being done electronically? Why is that not being done in a more nimble way? And so I'd like to see, you know, the lender, from a lender's point of view, the landscape being a bit more even and just everybody understanding that this is the way that we do business now. And then that will breed more innovation. So it won't just be a case of, oh, I've got a cool decision engine, or I've got an integration with this firm over here, or it will start to breed things that we haven't really even sort of, we almost can't currently comprehend. You know, if someone had said to you 20 years ago you could do this sort of thing before text had even been invented, they would have laughed you out of the room.
Yes, yeah. I guess the interesting thing is things like, to that point, digital ID that you've adopted. You know, you didn't have to go and invent a whole new digital ID platform and, you know, millions and millions in R&D. You know, there are a number of services out there that we've sort of integrated with, and you can roll this technology into your journeys for very low cost, actually. These technology platforms have had investment, and their whole return on investment is around getting scale of people using their platform. So, you know, digital ID, AVMs and others, there are APIs out there that you can kind of plug into. And I guess to your point, you know, ultimately product and differentiates, you know, different lenders and etc. And at the moment it's, you know, it's product, there's technology, there's convenience, that kind of triangle. So I guess it'll be an interesting few years as some of this stuff becomes like productized into platforms. You know, your 27 Techs with an Iris kind of building some of the stuff into even some of the platforms that lenders use. That lenders have a lot of challenges around, you know, legacy platforms and others, those that haven't built stuff bespoke. So I think, you know, that sort of stuff, I completely agree. I think that will, it's kind of the obvious stuff, I guess. What you don't know is the unknown. You know, what innovative products could be developed, you know.
Exactly. I mean, one of the things that, you know, we don't want to have happen, you don't want it to become so standardized that it's just every lender or every broker is just a different label on the same tin. You know, everyone's got baked beans. It's just some are Heinz, some are Tesco, some are Marks and Spencer. Do you know what I mean? You don't want it to go that far. But equally, I think that, you know, the nature of the beast is, you know, people will want to differentiate in other ways. That might be risk appetite, that might be product features, that might be 101 different things. But I think the more that we can get to a landscape where consumers just understand, to get a mortgage, I do these things, you know, and everybody has an online offering, everybody does income insert, you know, verification or options on those sorts of things. Whereas at the moment there is quite a disparity. If you go to one lender, it's a 18-page physical application form and a full valuation that comes back and it's 40 pages long. And then the next lender, it's an online, you know, it's an app, it's Atom, it's an app, and it's an AVM, and it's just very different approaches. So I think a bit more standardization, because ultimately that will grow the market. The easier it becomes, the market will get bigger. You might see consolidation, but ultimately the market will get bigger.
Cool. So I'm conscious of your time, so 45 minutes of time, but
no worries.
really useful. I mean, as a kind of final sort of area that we've been looking at the moment, and certainly over the last couple of years, people have talked about artificial intelligence as something that potentially could have an impact on the industry from an underwriting perspective, also from a servicing perspective. From us, it's actually been really interesting the last 2 weeks. The conversations are really moving forward around kind of leveraging AI for chatbots. So it's similar to the digital ID point earlier. You can build a chatbot fairly quickly now using sort of Microsoft Bot Framework or others, and everyone's call volumes have gone through the roof at the moment. And what we've been looking at is, a lot of those calls don't really need a human being to answer. And if your call lines are, are completely stacked, could AI help there by spinning up chatbots relatively quickly and rolling them out to the market to help? Is AI something you guys have a view on or thinking about for the future?
So interesting you should say within a kind of a chatbot scenario. That's exactly that is something that we're looking at.
Okay.
I think if you'd have asked a lot of mortgage lenders that have had to really restrict volume or pull out of the market entirely simply under the deluge of 3-month payment holiday calls, in a month's time, are you going to be pulling out of the market because you can't handle inbound calls? They've said, no way, we've got call centers for that, or we've got, we can deal with it. The volume would have to be ridiculous. Well, I saw a stat the other day that Nationwide had 200 payment holidays in 2019, and in 1 week they had 48,000 calls about it. So you can't. How can you plan for that? But if they'd have been able to come out and put a message on the website or put a message out in the press and said, if you want a payment holiday, go online, click this feature, request it, and they could have built using AI, a digital journey to give that customer what they needed. They wouldn't have got 48,000 telephone calls. And it's very hard. It's very hard to predict that. I mean, who would have predicted that? But using that as an example, we can facilitate, answering certain types of queries in that way. I think the guys at Kensington have done a fantastic job implementing, AI into, and their new inquiry chatbot. So brokers can go online, they type in a query in the Kensington website, and it gets answered. And you're right, you've got to educate it still, and there has to be human monitoring certain things. And it won't ever get everything right. But if we can use that, it's an immediate answer. The broker doesn't have to call up and wait on the line. They can do it in front of their customer while they're doing their advised sale at the same time. So there's all that sort of upside. So for us, we think there's a big opportunity in using AI in that particular stream. I mentioned earlier on that we're also looking at, sorting documentation using AI, because then we don't have to have a human being say, oh, that's a payslip, that's a val, that's a thing. You can just sort it into a digital file much more easily. So I think there's applications for that, and again, for us, it'll be what's the bang for buck? Where do we get our benefit? People are entering the room. For us, it's about bang for buck. Where can we utilize that to the best of our ability? But I think you'll see more of that now. I think you'll definitely see more of that.
Definitely. Good. Well, I guess that's a positive place to end for today. Before I've got people knocking at the door as well, trying to get in. So thanks a lot for your time today. You have taken part in a moment of history, the first Doc9 Zoom interview. So thank you for partaking in that experiment. And let's try and catch up.
I think we should congratulate ourselves, Mark. We need to congratulate ourselves more for getting through this without having any kids enter the room. There's been no shouting. We've done a fantastic job here. So well done to us both.
If people actually press record, that would be but cool. Well, so thanks again, and hopefully next time, hopefully we can meet up in person, have a beer, and look back at this period as an innovative period.
That'd be great.
And move forward together. Brilliant. All right, Buster, we'll take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Mark. Cheers, mate. Take care, pal. Bye. See you later.